think we really need to change our narrative. So it is true, I think, that we have been taught to kind of keep our head down, to be good citizens, and that in that way, if we do those things, we will earn our quote rightful place in American society. But that is not working. And so I think what we need to do is to be strong and to be ourselves and to just lean into being Asian American and to allow us to, really embrace and acknowledge the gifts of our ancestors, let them enrich who we are, and let that be what we bring into the world in a really unique way. And I think we need to be able to say, we are American simply by being who we are, right? Just sorry, did you just see my cat?
Yeah. Oh.
Her name was Alicia. I don't know. It was very interesting.
Hey everyone! Welcome back to the Situation Room, a journey into Asian America. We dive deep into the issues in the Asian American community, from questions like, where are you really from? And representation, to sharing food and our own experiences. My name is Emily Villaverde.
I'm Zach Ging. So this episode, we talk to Nydia Han in the Situation Room. We discuss journalism, the power of our voices, especially in the time of COVID racism, her signature series, This is America, identity, being perpetual foreigners, and more. So stay tuned. It's an incredible interview, and we're super excited to share it with you all.
Yeah, I had the best time getting to know Nydia and just hearing what she had to say with the questions that we threw at her. So I really love this interview, and I hope you guys like it too. But first, we're going to jump into current events. Zach, it is Mid-Autumn Moon Festival.
It is.
And I am so excited because mooncakes!
I have to go get some. I'm not sure where to get them near me without going far.
I don't know either. So guys, I am currently based in Miami. I'm at school, but there's not that big of an Asian community in the Coral Gables, Miami area. So I don't know where to get mooncakes. I
Ooh.
usually normally this time of the year, our Chinese Students and Scholars Association, one of the student orgs on campus, has an event where they introduce Mid-Autumn Moon Festival and they give out mooncakes. And the Asian American Students Association hosts a Lantern Festival, which Zach and I are a part of. And just things are so different now because of COVID. So I really don't know where to get my mooncakes.
I would ask our guest on episode 4, Dorothy Chan. She might know
Oh, for
where to get
sure.
some, because she grew up in
Dorothy
Miami.
definitely knows.
Yeah, and I know there's like
Yeah.
a couple places, like the store in Westchester towards Tropical Park. I don't know if you know, like by Conchow. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're right.
Shout out
But
all the
that's so
good
far.
Asian places. It's like 15 minutes. Shout out all the good Asian places in Miami. But in less fun news, the journal Health, Education, and Behavior has recently released an article or a study examining how racially charged rhetoric revolving around the coronavirus has impacted bias against Asian Americans. They acknowledge how there's been a decline in anti-Asian sentiments over the past decade as we've become more diverse and accepting. And you see that in a lot of Asian American media coming up and like this coming of age. But it talks about how a lot of that is just completely reversed. I believe I'm reading a quote from on March 9th, there was an 800% increase in such rhetoric among conservative media outlets with the rise of COVID. Yeah.
Wow. 800?
800%. Yeah. I mean, because it just like, I guess, a little anti-Asian rhetoric, and then, China virus and plague becomes a term, which we heard a lot of.
I mean, yeah. So this week, the first presidential debate happened. And I don't know if you noticed, I know a lot of people noticed, President Trump's still using the terms China plague.
Yeah, I'm not
I
really
heard
surprised.
that and I remember, I'm not surprised either, but I think it's been a while since I've heard it. So I was watching the debates and I heard him say it, and I looked at my roommate and I was like, Alex, did he just say China plague? And she goes, yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just, it's crazy that after everything that's been going on the past couple months with anti-Asian racism and, trying to fix the problem that's currently at hand, things like this still pop up.
Yeah. But the first debate is over. Will there be well, I don't know if there'll be more.
We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I joked before to my dad. I was like, there should be a rule where you should be able to like cut mics. Like the moderator should be able to cut mics. And I mean, they're discussing it in the reports and whatnot. Yeah. Anyway, let's get on to our interview with Nydia Han. It's an incredible one coming up. And right after, we're going to do Dish It Out.
That girl wonder. Her name was Alicia. I don't know. She was very insistent.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Situation Room. Today, we welcome Nydia Han. Hi, Nydia.
Hello, nice to see you.
We are so excited to have you on the show today. Why don't you start off by telling us, a little bit about yourself, what you do, all the works.
So I'm a broadcast journalist. I have been a consumer investigative reporter for 20 plus years. I also anchor the news. So currently I work for 6ABC, which is the ABC owned and operated station in Philadelphia. We cover southeastern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, and Delaware. And I have been with this station, Action News, for about 18 years now. I've been with the ABC owned and operated television group for 20 years. I started my career in Pocatello, Idaho as a reporter, and then I moved to Oklahoma City and then Houston. And I've been in Philadelphia now again for about 18 years. And I just love working for this company. I love working for ABC. And I feel really grateful to be part of the ABC family.
Wow. Thank you for taking the time to be on our show. I'm really excited to have you. So I'm going to get started with a couple questions. You're someone who is very active and you understand the power of your voice. I think we can all agree that, we need more Asian American voices out there. Can you describe, your path to finding your voice and the importance of using your voice as not only an Asian American, but as a journalist?
It's funny, I started writing about Asian American issues when I was in college. And I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a journalist. I planned on being a print journalist and writing specifically long form pieces for magazines. And then I kind of caught the TV bug in college and decided to be a broadcast journalist. And I am grateful for that now. I hope that it's helpful for our children to see an Asian American on the news and in a really visible way. But I don't think I really specifically found my Asian American voice and started being an activist for our community until just a few years ago. So 3 years ago, a woman yelled, "This is America" at me on a Philadelphia street. And I assumed that she said that to me because she didn't think that my Asian face could belong to that of an American. And, after years of feeling othered and feeling like people saw me as the forever foreigner, I finally decided to respond. And so I responded to that driver in a live Facebook video that ended up going viral. That viral video, we turned into a docu-series called #ThisIsAmerica. And from there, my journey really has continued in the sense that I do a lot of speaking engagements. I talk to a lot of groups. Our station just produced a PSA addressing the backlash against the AAPI community in light of COVID-19. And so we are trying to continue to do this work, to amplify our stories, and to make sure that people understand that Asian Americans are an important part of this country and that we have contributed so much, and that contributions aside, we are very much American. And I've been writing a lot about that too. So, I have a very active social media presence. I just recently wrote an article for abcnews.com. I wrote an op-ed for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I just think in any way that we can, and we can seize these opportunities to talk about who we are, I hope it's helpful for our community.
Yeah. It's incredible that, you have such a powerful voice for the Asian American community. I applaud you so much. Um, but I know you said that, you know, you really haven't started your career as, I guess, like that career as an activist for the Asian American community until just 3 years ago. But you know, you said this, it just like your interest in this community started back in college. And a question that I have for you is, you know, how has your Asian American identity influenced your career and more so the responsibilities of, you know, being a journalist?
So I grew up in a very small town in Southern California, and there were very few people who looked like us. And so I, spent a lifetime, and specifically, and especially my childhood, feeling like I was searching for a sense of real belonging. And I felt like when people looked at me, they saw someone who wasn't really American. I mean, we still get it all the time, right? Where are you from? No, where are you really from? And so I think, I always liked to write. And so I think I decided to be a writer because I wanted to talk more about our experience and just reminding people and talking about and sharing our stories. And so I think that was the genesis of my wanting to be a journalist. The broadcast part was more because I thought it was fun and I liked the medium. And I think the pictures are very moving and allow you to tell a story in a very different way than you can in print. I think there's something really beautiful and powerful about print too, of course. But I belong to the Asian American Journalists Association, and I think that group is such a great reminder of how important it is that we show up for each other and we support each other. It is because of AAJA I have the job that I do now. I met the then assistant news director of our station in an elevator at an Asian American Journalists Association conference. And so not only did AAJA provide that opportunity, it has also provided countless mentors, resources, all kinds of information for me to jumpstart my career. And so I think in a lot of ways, being specifically Asian American has helped me in my career and given me a lot of gifts that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Awesome. So something we want to touch back on, speaking of journalism and writing, you posted a reporter's notebook on ABC titled "I Don't Scare Easily, but the COVID-19 virus of hate has me terrified." And in it you say, quote, as an American, I'm worried about the long-term impact of this virus of hate will have on our country. And the anti-Asian rhetoric hasn't really slowed down. Before COVID, Asian Americans, we were on a roll. Movies like Crazy Rich Asians were coming out. Bowen Yang was on SNL. But despite the progress, after the outbreak, it feels like we've been shoved backwards. And I know you're worried about the long-term impacts. I am too. We're curious, what do you see the long-term impacts being?
We had made progress before COVID-19, and there's no question when you look at our history what the long-term impact of this can be. And that is, look at the internment of 100,000, mostly Americans of Japanese descent during World War II. That didn't just happen. That came from decades and decades of people looking at Asian Americans as perpetual foreigners. That is what happens when there is this kind of hate that is now manifesting again and in a renewed, extraordinarily ugly way. And so I think we need to really look at our history to make sure it doesn't repeat itself. We need to nip this hate in the bud as much as we can. And that's why I've been working so hard as a journalist to amplify what is happening, to expose these incidents, to expose the perpetrators, to make sure that people understand that this is a reality for our community and this is what it's like to walk in our shoes. Because, in the beginning of the pandemic, I interviewed a man who was punched in the face and who was attacked by someone who called him the coronavirus and then told him to get the F out of here. That person fractured his jaw on both sides and broke his left collarbone. I've also interviewed middle school students who were harassed on their way home from school. I talked to college students who were really upset by a video that went viral where a freshman in Philadelphia was saying, I think that all Chinese should have something put in their DNA so they die at the age of 13. And since then, I continue to get information from people about things like that happening in our community. Just a few weeks ago, we covered a story about a woman who was 8 months pregnant and was punched in the face by someone who said, again, F you, Chinese, and then expletives. So, I think it's really important that we are not silent about this, that we don't just brush this aside, but we make sure that people know what's happening so that law enforcement and our government officials and our lawmakers and our policymakers can address what is happening for our community.
Yeah, and definitely, the talk about the Asian American community is more apparent in the media and just everywhere right now, especially with the coronavirus pandemic. AAPIs have started to talk about race now in recent years more than ever. I know growing up, Zach and I didn't really get to hear those conversations about Asian Americans and those talks about race as often as we should. And, that's a huge reason why we decided to create the Situation Room. You mentioned in this same piece that we hope by being, quote, super citizens, we might eventually be viewed as American. And we discussed being perpetual foreigners on this show before. You've mentioned it already. What do you think it's going to take for us to be accepted as American? And does that overlap with Asian representation in the media and journalism?
I think we really need to change our narrative. So it is true, I think, that we have been taught to kind of keep our head down, to be good citizens, and that in that way, if we do those things, we will earn our, quote, rightful place in American society. But that is not working. And so I think what we need to do is to be strong and to be ourselves and to just lean into being Asian American and to allow us to, really embrace and acknowledge the gifts of our ancestors, let them enrich who we are, and let that be what we bring into the world in a really unique way. And I think we need to be able to say, we are American simply by being who we are, right? Sorry, did you just see my cat?
Aw.
So, I think that that's important. No other group, I think, or maybe they do, but I don't think that because we are Asian American, we have to work or feel like we have to work extra hard to earn our place in society and to be looked at and considered true Americans. We are American simply by being who we are. And I think that is a really important message that we need to send to each other and also certainly to our children. It's something that I try to tell my children every day, which is be proud of who you are. You are American and you are Asian American and you belong in this country. And that is not something that you have to fight for. That is simply a right that you have.
Definitely. And I think that's a message that we really do try to push, not only, for ourselves to believe, but, the community around us. I mean, Zach and I are involved in, our different organizations around school, and we try and push that, we are Asian. Yeah, but we are also Asian American and we are American. We belong here just as much as anybody else. And that's something that we can't really change. And that's something that we should accept more so rather than try and change.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, guys, we're going to take a short break for a commercial, but when we get back, we will continue our interview with Nydia Han.
Her name was Alicia. I don't know.
So welcome back to the Situation Room. We have Nydia Han, and we want to go back and talk about This is America. So in your series, you explore the divisions we have as Americans, especially on the lines of race. And many would argue that right now we're at the height of polarization in our country. And in your experiences creating This is America, you talk about the divides we have. And so we're curious, how do you think we should start to break down these barriers that continue to divide us?
Yeah, in the series, I talk about the divides that we have, but I hope that what I talk about more and what people really get out of it is how much we have in common and how we need to figure out all of the ways in which we're alike so we can open up a space to dialogue about our differences. I hope the other thing that people get out of that series is how important it is we check our own biases. So as a reminder to people, it was born out of a viral Facebook video of mine. So that happened when a driver yelled, "This is America" at me. And I decided to respond to her in a live Facebook video explaining that I am very much an American. And when I did that video, 3 million people viewed it, 68,000 people reacted to it, 16,000 people commented on it. And I was really interested by the comments specifically that didn't like my message, or, that were I was interested by my detractors. And so I set to go find them and to have conversations with them about why they commented the way they did, why they didn't like my video. And I was really surprised when I actually met those people, because I had assumed they were racist and uneducated and unsophisticated, even stupid. And what I found is, in many cases, they're not that at all. And in fact, I had made assumptions based on my own biases about the other side as I saw it. The other thing is, a lot of people made assumptions about the driver, specifically about her race. But I have never said the color of her skin. And so I always invite people, after I've shared that story, to think about, who did you picture as the driver? What did that person look like to you? And is that based on your knee-jerk reaction and your biases? I like to tell the story about a guy named Wayne. So he responded to my Facebook video and kind of fueled the fire among my detractors. I tried to talk to him in person, have him sit down with me on camera for our docuseries. But after corresponding with me via Facebook message and email and text message, when I asked him if he would meet with me in person, he stopped communicating with me. But he apparently forgot that I'm an investigative journalist, so I know how to find things. So I found his home address and I just showed up one afternoon. And I was really surprised when he opened the door with his children. His children are the same ages as mine. They, are adorable, and he's clearly a good dad. He had just gotten home from work. So, I've been up since 2:00 this morning anchoring our morning show. He also often does an overnight shift. So we both have these crazy work schedules. We realize that we have the same hopes and dreams for our kids. And, he explained to me that he had responded to my Facebook video the way that he had because he was fearful that he was going to lose his job to someone of color. And he said, though, that after he, talked to me, he decided to go back and watch my Facebook video in its entirety, which he hadn't actually done when he commented on Facebook. And he said that after he watched it in its entirety, it made him kind of reflect on himself and hit the pause button and really take some time, instead of just reacting on Facebook, to actually listen. And he even joined a fantasy football league in which he is the only member who is not a person of color. And he says that he's really tried to understand and listen to other people's experiences in this country, and to let those stories inform how he responds and reacts and acts moving forward. And I think, one of my other big messages out of #ThisIsAmerica is, this is work. So, I realized that it was born out of my responding to someone on social media and having a knee-jerk reaction. But I hope that what people learn from it, as I have, is that instead of just going to social media and lashing out, I hope people really do the work in trying to talk to people who are different from them. I think we, especially as Asian Americans, need to get out of our bubbles and stop preaching to the choir and just talking amongst each other. And I think we really need to take the initiative and get to know other people, people who don't look like us, because then we really have the opportunity to move in with people and to help them get to know us as well.
I think it's awesome that you just showed up at this guy's house just to ask him, just to talk to him, because, that really just shows that you are passionate about the work that you do and trying to find answers and trying to learn more. And I think that's something that we all need to do more. I'm not saying, just randomly show up and demand, or just show up and be up in front with trying to find it out, but just having more of an open mind. I really love that idea. But for some Asian Americans, like you said, we need to step out of that bubble and really, I guess, just face the music. But for some Asian Americans, that's a little bit difficult. So you interview a man named Hajib Robertson in Sinking Spring, Pennsylvania. He's of mixed race, and he discusses his identity crisis with you. Many young AAPIs go through their own identity crises and have struggled with figuring out where they belong as an Asian American. And that really stems that problem with trying to accept who they are and figuring out just where they fit in overall. You mentioned that you grew up in Ventura, California, which is a predominantly white community. I grew up in white New Jersey suburbs, and for me, finding my own identity was difficult because growing up, I was ridiculed for being Asian, and I worked so hard for so many years just trying to fit in and Americanize myself so that I would fit in with my peers. But can you tell us about, your experiences with finding your own identity as an Asian American?
I so feel what you're saying, because I had a very similar experience. And it's funny because, my parents always taught me to be a proud Korean American. And I was, my grandmother lived with us for 5 years. I spoke Korean with her exclusively, such that I still am able to speak and understand Korean today. I'm teaching our kids how to speak Korean. So there was a part of me that was really proud to be Korean American. And certainly I'm very proud to be Korean American today. But there was also the other part of me that wanted desperately to fit in. I remember one day, my mom tells me this story. I don't remember it, but because I was so young. But I guess I came home from school and I said, when am I going to turn blonde? And I wanted to have blonde hair and long legs, and I wanted to look like, all these other kids in my class. So I understand that. I was a cheerleader, an all-American cheerleader, and I think it was one of those things that I thought would make me seem and feel more American. What's interesting though is then I went to Northwestern University, and I was so excited to be someplace where there were more Asian Americans. Mm-hmm. And I tried to join some Asian American and Korean American groups. And specifically with the Korean group, I remember feeling like an outcast within that group, because there was apparently some consequence to my having tried to be American or white for so long. And so they saw me as a Twinkie or a banana. And I didn't really feel accepted by the Korean group there at Northwestern University. And so I think sometimes we hurt ourselves, right? We get in our own way. I just really think for our kids, and now for myself, I really am so grateful for all of the ways in which I am diverse and different. And I think in my personal life and in my professional life, those things are really blessings. I saw them as curses when I was younger, but now I absolutely see the beauty in what makes us unique. And I just so hope that other Asian Americans out there are able to see that as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I definitely relate. I remember growing up, my parents would pack me traditional Filipino food for lunch. And there was at one point, and I wrote about this because I'm a creative writing minor, and a lot of my pieces are about Asian American identity, actually. And I remember writing about just school lunches. And at one point growing up, I when I came home and I told my parents I wanted to switch to American food.
Hmm.
And I asked questions like, why can't I bring Lunchables with me to school like the other kids? And I was that weird kid in the cafeteria with, a thermos with noodles and rice. And I felt like I stuck out like a sore thumb. But fast forward to my college years now, I'm so proud. And, when my grandmother sent, like, when I leave for Miami, my grandmother always asks if I want to bring frozen food with me on the plane, just so that I have that little piece of home and I have some home cooked Filipino food stored away in the fridge. And it just, it boggles my mind that 10 years ago, I would have turned it away immediately. And now I'm just reaching for it. And I'm really showcasing just my culture and how proud I am of it.
I'm so glad to hear that. And the truth is, being Asian American, being is cool now, right? Like that was a
Yeah.
shift for during my childhood, where at some point being Asian was cool, became cool. And
Mhm.
now you look at BTS and Rain, and the way some Asian celebrities have sort of taken over the world, and I think that's great. And I'm just so happy when I hear stories like yours.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I actually can relate a little bit to the college thing. Your story about going to college and thinking that you'll fit in and it'll be better in some way. Because the Philly suburbs aren't the most diverse, as many suburbs are, but it's slowly changing. But when I went to college, I remember like, oh, it's gonna be great, and it was for the most part, but it kind of questioned and pushed me to question my identity more because the ratio at our school is like 1-to-1 international students from Asia to like Asian Americans, and so I remember like a lot of like white students and stuff would like confuse us or like somebody, and there's not a lot of unity between the two, so it gets kind of complicated, and then the perpetual foreigner stereotype continues in that sense. But I remember.
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, continue.
It's hard, right? When you feel like you're neither here nor there. And I
Mhm.
guess what I would say is just be who you are. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
be here or here. You can
Mhm.
just be yourself, and that is the best person to be in. But it took me years to figure that out. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell your story.
No, it's okay. No, you're exactly right. And I remember like when I was 7, I said to my dad, I was like 100% Chinese and 100% American because people like do like the percentage of ethnicities, and he was like, that doesn't add up, and I was like, I was 7,
Good
but
for
that
you.
was like.
Be 200%. Why not?
Exactly, yes. But that was like when I first consciously, I guess, began to think about identity and race. And something I'm curious about, and something you've mentioned, is that you're a mom, and have you thought about like how you're gonna guide your kids and children into understanding identity?
I have taught our children from the time they were babies to speak Korean, to understand their Koreanness, what it means to be Asian, to be proud of that part of their identity. They go to Korean school every single Saturday from 10 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. It'll be virtual, of course, this fall season. But one of the proudest, happiest moments for me as a mom so far was when I went into my daughter's first grade classroom, and the assignment had been to draw pictures that explain who you are. And one of the pictures she drew was of the taegeukgi, which is the Korean flag.
Oh,
And another picture she drew was of dumplings, which she makes. So the word for dumplings in Korean is mandu. So she makes mandu with my dad, her grandpa. And so and then there were all these other pictures, of course, about who she is. She loves the beach, so she had that. She drew a picture of a keyboard because she likes to play the piano. So she already feels very much Asian American and Korean American, and I'm so happy about that.
I love that response because I remember that assignment when I was younger, and my teacher would ask all of us to make a name tag, and around our name just include little drawings of things that describe us. And for me, it's crazy because I don't think I included anything about my Filipino heritage. And it makes me really sad that, thinking back, I didn't really embrace it as much. I might have drawn the flag like maybe once or twice, but it was mostly just New Jersey things. So I loved going to the beach, and these are my favorite, American foods and movies and stuff like that. And I love that your kids are fully embracing that, like, their Korean culture and their Korean American culture, because I think that's so important that we have to push now with future generations that it's okay to be different. It's the American, I guess, image is not a cookie cutter image. It's something that is really, it's so diverse, and it's a really just a melting pot of different cultures that shapes us who we are.
It is especially hard now, I think, amid the pandemic, for Asian American kids to hold their head up high and to feel proud.
Mm-hmm.
That is something, that's why I do the work that I do, because I want them so much to feel proud and to feel grateful for being Asian American. And look at you now, you're the host of the Situation Room. You're doing great work yourself, and you've come such a long way. So it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But before we let you go, Nydia, here in the Situation Room, we ask every guest 4 questions. So I'll start off with, what do you think it means to be AAPI?
I think it means that you bring your diverse gifts, the gifts that were given to you by your ancestors, and let those gifts enrich who you are and what you bring into the world. And I think it's a great reminder to tell people that AAPIs come from 30 different countries, speak more than 100 different languages and dialects. So who you are as an AAPI is very unique, and your AAPI experience is likely very different from mine and different from Zach's. And I think there's real beauty in that. And I hope that together as the AAPI community, we can sort of uplift each other and our unique experiences within this race group.
Awesome. So to segue in, food is often a bridge between people and a wonderful way to share one's culture. And so you don't have to pick one dish, but we want to know, what is your favorite Asian dish?
I'm Korean, so I have to say kimchi, right? I put kimchi on my pizza. I think kimchi for me is like ranch dressing. It goes with everything.
Wow, on pizza. I never heard of that. Okay, next question. Who would you consider to be your AAPI role model?
Mia Yamamoto. She is extraordinary. So she was born in 1943 in a Japanese American internment camp. She, instead of being resentful at the US government for having imprisoned her family, she decided to serve her country. She enlisted in the Army after college, and then she went to law school. She became a criminal defense attorney. She was a public defender, and she specialized in poverty law. She became an incredible fighter for civil rights. She's very active in the Black Lives Matter movement. Her father actually also broke barriers. He was a card-carrying member of the NAACP. Mia Yamamoto is also a champion for human rights around the world. She does so much work, and her interests are always for others. And she's always thinking about how she can bring people together and help all communities of color and marginalized communities. The really amazing, especially amazing thing about Mia Yamamoto is She is the first openly transgender lawyer in California history. So she was born under a different name and a different gender identity. She transitioned after she turned 60 years old. And so her journey of courage and boldness and daring and survival is really inspiring. And so she motivates me every single day, and I often think about her.
Wow. I've never heard that story before. That's incredible.
Yeah, she's great. She's 70, I guess 78 now. Am I doing my math right? But she's really awesome. I had the pleasure of meeting her um, at the NAP conference in Kansas City, I think last summer. And we've kept in touch ever since. And I just think she's great.
That's incredible. And our last question for you before we head out is, how can people connect with you?
So people can find me on Facebook. I have 2 Facebook accounts, a personal account and a station account. I kind of use them and post different things on those. I have an Instagram account, which I really love. I'm on Twitter, but I'm not the best on Twitter, to be honest with you. So if you're going to connect with me, I hope you'll find me on Instagram and Facebook. The easiest and best way to connect with me is by going to my website, www.nydiahan.com. You can find our entire hashtag This Is America series there, as well as pieces that I've written, and you can email me. I would love to keep in touch with you guys, Emily and Zach, and I just invite anyone out there to please reach out to me. I'm always looking for new ideas and ways to collaborate and people to collaborate with, so I look forward to hearing from you.
Awesome. Well, guys, anything that we mentioned in this interview, all of the resources that Nydia, Zach, and I have mentioned, as well as if you are interested in connecting with Nydia, will be included in our show notes. So definitely check them out on our website, www.situationroom.com. But yeah, that wraps up our interview with Nydia Han. Thank you again for joining us in the Situation Room.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
That girl wondered. Her name was Alicia. I don't know. She was very interesting.
Hey guys, welcome back to Dish It Out. So last week, Zach and I brought some of our own dishes from our own cultures to the Dish It Out table. But it's challenge week, so Zach and I are challenging each other to dive deeper into the AAPI community and look up some dishes from different cuisines. So as always, I'll go first. Zach challenged me to do chicken tikka. And this is another dish originating from India. This is very similar to a couple weeks back, I talked about tandoori chicken. This is similar. It's also popular in other South Asian countries such as Bangladesh and Pakistan. But how it's prepared, it's small pieces of boneless chicken on skewers, and it's cooked in this kebab form, marinated in Indian spices and dahi, which is yogurt, and baked in an agithi or agithi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry if I butcher it, but it's a brazier. And it's similar to tandoori chicken, like I mentioned, but it's the preparation of the chicken that's different. So tandoori chicken, it's baked in that the tandoor, which is like the cylindrical clay oven, so it has that smoky flavor. Whereas this has more of like, I don't know how to explain it really. I think it's like grilled or it's more roasted. But yeah, this dish, I mean, I'm all for spices. I love when, cuisines add like their own different spices to, make it their own. Chicken tikka can be served as is, kebab style, and paired with, rice and naan. But like tandoori chicken, it can also serve as the main chicken base for dishes like chicken tikka masala and a bunch of other curry dishes. I personally have never had it. I know I mentioned multiple times on this podcast that I need to dive deeper into South Asian cuisine and really just try a bunch of different dishes. Once we're out of quarantine, Zach, I promise I'm going to try all the foods.
I will I'll do it with you. I'll do it with you.
Have you tried chicken tikka before?
I feel like I have, but yeah, I think I've had it like once or twice, but it's been a long time. It's been a long time.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it looks really good. My trusty partner Google Images. When I looked up these dishes, when I looked up chicken tikka, it looks really good. It just kebab form, and when I typed it into the search engine, chicken tikka masala just came up, and the pictures are so good. I definitely need to try this dish once, I can go out and order more food.
Oh, of course. Yeah, everything always tastes better if it's on a stick.
Absolutely.
But the dish you challenged me to is pad thai. So pad thai, you got stir-fried noodles. A lot of people use like chicken or shrimp, prawns, or both. Rice noodles, crushed peanuts, which I am allergic to. So if I do eat pad thai, I need to ask them to not do that. But tofu, also pretty popular. Green onions, garlic chives, bean sprouts. It's relatively simple because you just stir fry them all. And there's always a sauce, usually made from fish sauce, vinegar, sugar, tamarind, sriracha, which can give it that heat, because sometimes some places are less spicy, more spicy, but the heat is usually from sriracha. And actually, something really interesting is Jet Tila from Food Network. Jet Tila's family actually introduced pad thai to America and most of the world. So Jet Tila's family was pioneers in like most Thai food that we know, like if not all, because they had a Thai market in Hollywood, California, and this was before any other competition really came in. And I found that story really interesting, how like they have kind of influenced Thai American cuisine.
Mm-hmm. I personally love pad thai. When I get it with my parents, so Zach, you can't get pad thai with my family because my parents ask for extra peanuts and extra.
Why?
Because it's the nuttiness of it, like it takes the dish to a whole new level. It's so good. But besides the extra peanuts, because you can't have it, the extra lime juice, my parents order shrimp pad thai, and it's so good. My parents we ask for like a side dish of lime wedges, and that I love the refreshing taste that comes from the citrusy, like that extra lime. And it's such a good dish. We usually order it for the entire table to share. It's a classic noodle. You can't go wrong with noodles, dude. You can't. You really can't. It's so good.
Pad thai is beautiful. Anyway, it's like, it's really hard to make stir fry bad though. Like, talk about stir fry is just a great thing. And it's a very common Asian thing.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But as always, Asian dishes are only good, or any dish is only good if you share them with other people. That's the beauty of food, passing down the culture and stories. And so we want to hear from you, because the AAPI community is so diverse, and we want to keep learning about different foods and recipes. So send us your recipes, whether that's via social media or submit it through our website, and we would love to make it happen and feature it on Dish It Out, whether that's our Dish It Out blog on our website or this podcast segment right now.
Yes, and Zach just mentioned Dish It Out blog. Guys, check it out. We have so much on the blog, whether it's recipes that we talked about here on the podcast, blog posts on different dishes that we have sent in, as well as video clips from this podcast. If you don't, if you want to play back Dish It Out, we have that all on the Dish It Out blog on our website. Sorry.
Thank you again to Nydia Han for coming to the Situation Room, and thank you all for tuning into this episode. The Situation Room is produced by Crimson Planet Media. Make sure to check out our website, situationroom.com, for the show notes. Follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook at The Situation Room for more content.
Yes, and to our listeners on YouTube, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to our show. And subscribe to us wherever you tune into your favorite podcast if you're not on YouTube. Also, we have a newsletter. Get all of the Situation Room's updates as well as exclusive content by signing up on our website. And as always, we want to hear from you guys. So send us messages through our website, slide into our DMs on Instagram, send us messages on Facebook. Let us know what you want us to talk about next in the Situation Room. But for now, thank you again for joining us on this step of our journey through Asian America. Once again, my name is Emily Villaverde.
And I'm Zach King. So same time next week.
Duh.
All right, let's
Same
do
place?
it. Let's do it. All right. Bye.
All right, we're done. Good job.
Hey.